What if everything you were taught about aging, disease, and recovery was built on a foundation that's already crumbling? And the real science, the stuff that's been quietly sitting in peer-reviewed journals for years, points to something so simple and so accessible that you could start today with things already sitting in your kitchen right now? Because here's what most people never get told. Your body is not slowly giving up on you. It is actively, aggressively, relentlessly trying to save you, every single hour of every single day. And the only question that actually matters is whether you are feeding that process or quietly starving it without even knowing it. The human body contains somewhere between 37 and 100 trillion cells, and hidden inside that staggering number is a repair army so sophisticated, so precisely engineered, that no pharmaceutical company on Earth has come close to replicating what your own biology already does for free. Stem cells, circulating through your bloodstream right now, hunting down damage, patching broken tissue, reinforcing blood vessels, calming inflammation, and doing it all silently while you go about your day completely unaware that a biological miracle is happening inside you at this very moment. But here is where it gets genuinely remarkable, and this is the part that took researchers by surprise. What you eat has the power to either double or completely suppress the number of those stem cells actively circulating in your blood. And the difference between those two outcomes can mean the difference between a body that ages gracefully, stays resilient, and fights back against chronic disease, versus one that quietly deteriorates decade by decade while you assume that's just what getting older feels like. It is not. That is not aging. That is a body that has been systematically under-resourced, and the solution is not a prescription. It is a decision you make 3 times a day at the table. Now, before you dismiss that as wellness talk, understand that what we are discussing is not anecdote. It is clinical data from university hospitals, published in peer-reviewed journals, conducted on real patients with real chronic conditions, and the results are the kind that make researchers pause and read the data twice, because they contradict decades of medical assumptions about what is and is not reversible. Take cardiovascular disease as the starting point, because it is the world's #1 killer, and it has been treated for generations as a one-way street. You get it, you manage it, you live with it. But that model is wrong. Studies conducted on patients already diagnosed with cardiovascular disease, people in their 60s with hardened arteries, stiff blood vessels, compromised circulation, were given something so ordinary, so humble, so completely unintimidating that the very fact it produced the results it did should permanently change how you think about what medicine means. They were given 2 cups of hot chocolate per day, made from high-percentage dark chocolate, for a single month. And at the end of that month, their circulating stem cell counts had nearly doubled. Their blood vessel flexibility, a key marker of cardiovascular health called flow-mediated dilation, had measurably improved. In patients who already had hardened arteries, reversal. Not management, not slowing the progression, actual measurable reversal. And the mechanism is not mysterious once you understand it. Dark chocolate, specifically the kind with 70% cacao or higher, contains a class of plant compounds called proanthocyanidins, polyphenols that act like a biological alarm signal inside your body, triggering your bone marrow to release stem cells into the bloodstream the way bees pour out of a hive when the colony is activated. Those stem cells then do something extraordinary. They do not wander randomly. They home in specifically, with a precision that human medicine cannot yet artificially replicate, to the exact tissues that are damaged and need repair. This is your body's own regenerative intelligence, and you can turn it on with a square of dark chocolate. That is not metaphor. That is mechanism. But dark chocolate is only one entry point into a much larger truth, which is that the foods most capable of activating your body's regenerative systems are also the foods most capable of defending your immune system. And those two things are far more connected than conventional medicine has historically treated them. Consider blueberries, which look almost comically unassuming, sitting in a little plastic container in the grocery store, and yet contain a polyphenol called anthocyanin that has been studied in the context of elite athletic performance, with results that rewrote assumptions about immune function and exercise. When marathon runners, people whose immune systems predictably crash after a race due to the extreme physiological stress of running 26 miles, consume just 1 cup of blueberries per day for 3 weeks before their race, something shifted. Their immune baseline elevated before the race, and after the race, instead of the usual crash where natural killer cells and T cells drop and athletes spend days sick and depleted, their immune markers stayed elevated, completely elevated, as if the race had not happened at all, immunologically speaking. 1 cup of blueberries per day for 3 weeks. That is the gap between a body that collapses under stress and one that rises to meet it. And it is not genetic luck, it is nutritional decision making. Now, here is something that almost nobody talks about when they talk about immunity, and it is the single most important piece of the entire puzzle. 70% of your immune system does not live in your blood, your lymph nodes, or your spleen the way medical school textbooks implied for generations. It lives in the walls of your gut, literally inside the lining of your digestive tract, packed so densely with immune tissue that your gut is essentially the headquarters of your body's entire defense operation. And the gut bacteria living in the center of that same tube are in constant, direct, bidirectional communication with all of that immune tissue, shouting signals back and forth through a wall so thin that what you eat for breakfast today is actively reshaping the conversation happening between your microbiome and your immune system before you finish your morning coffee. Which means gut health is not a wellness trend. It is immune strategy. It is inflammation management. It is longevity biology. And feeding it correctly, with prebiotic polyphenols from colorful foods, with dietary fiber that your gut bacteria consume to produce the short-chain fatty acids that lower systemic inflammation, with fermentable plant material from sources as surprising as avocado and mushrooms, is not optional if you want your body to actually perform at the level it was designed to perform at. Mushrooms deserve specific attention here because they are one of the most underestimated foods in existence. The dietary fiber inside mushrooms is called beta-glucan, and beta-glucan does something remarkable that most fibers do not. It simultaneously feeds your gut microbiome, lowers inflammation, stimulates new blood vessel growth to improve circulation, and triggers stem cell mobilization. One food, one compound, doing 4 distinct things your body desperately needs. And kiwi fruit, which most people eat casually and never think twice about, has been shown in clinical studies to alter the composition of your gut microbiome in measurable beneficial ways in as little as overnight after eating just 2 per day. Overnight? The timeline for positive biological change is not years of discipline. It can be 24 hours of better decisions. Then there is the matter of inflammation itself, because the cultural conversation around inflammation has become so oversimplified that it is actively misleading people. Inflammation is not your enemy. Inflammation is one of the most sophisticated and necessary biological processes your body runs. It is the janitorial crew that rushes in after an injury to clean up the damage, orchestrate repair, and restore function. The problem is never inflammation itself. The problem is chronic, low-grade, persistent inflammation that never shuts off. The janitors who never go home, who eventually start creating more mess than they clean up, who over time contribute to heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and cognitive decline. And here is what the research consistently shows. The polyphenols found in seasonal fruits, the anthocyanins in summer berries, the flavonoids in autumn apples, the hesperidin in winter citrus, act as biological regulators of that inflammatory response, keeping the campfire contained to the fire pit instead of letting it spread across the forest floor. Eating with the seasons is not romanticized folklore. It is pharmacology that has been free and available to human beings since before recorded history. Sleep deserves a place in this conversation that it almost never gets in the context of regenerative biology, because while you are lying completely still and appear to be doing nothing, your body is running its most intensive repair cycle of the entire 24-hour period. Stem cells deploying on patrol, immune system resetting, gut microbiome reorganizing, DNA damage being identified and repaired at the chromosomal level. The single best thing you can do to amplify that overnight repair cycle is to stop eating as early as possible before sleep, because digestion competes with regeneration for biological resources, and the more your body has to dedicate to processing a late-night meal, the less it can pour into the repair work that determines how you feel, how you age, and how resilient you are tomorrow. Which brings everything to 3 practical anchors that cost nothing and require no special equipment. Drink water, coffee, and tea without dairy, because the fat in dairy forms bubbles that physically trap the polyphenols and carry them through your gut unabsorbed, meaning you get perhaps 20% of the benefit you think you are getting every morning. Stop eating before you feel completely full, because overeating is metabolically indistinguishable from pouring gasoline past the point the tank can hold it. It becomes toxic overflow and occasionally skip breakfast, not because breakfast is always wrong, but because giving your body an extended overnight fasting window is one of the most powerful signals you can send your metabolism, your stem cells, and your cellular repair systems that it is time to clean house. The body you are living in right now is not a fixed, deteriorating object. It is a dynamic, adaptive, regenerating system that is waiting right now for the inputs that tell it to perform at its highest level. And those inputs are not rare, expensive, or complicated. They are dark chocolate, blueberries, kiwi, mushrooms, colorful vegetables, clean water, quality sleep, and the discipline to stop eating before your body has to manage an overflow it was never designed to handle. Start with one of these today. Just one. Because the biology does not wait for the perfect moment. It responds to the next decision you make.